I think it would be really helpful if we had more birth videos that really show the work that gets put into the birth process. My point of that is saying when we're looking at things on social media, it is the highlights. Those videos are the highlights and they are wonderful and beautiful, and that the goal is to have some of those wonderful and beautiful experiences, but just know that there is going to be tough, difficult parts of that process to get there. And it's part of it. It's okay. It's normal. And really, it's all about educating yourself so you know how to work with your body to get through it. Today, we're tackling a topic that I think nobody talks about, or at least not enough. And that is what it really takes to feel ready for birth. Now, what if I told you that most moms go into labor completely unprepared, physically, mentally, and emotionally? Now, if you are here and you are searching this kind of stuff and you are listening to podcasts about birth and things like that, we're really hoping that's not going to be you, and I don't think it will. So that is going to end right here. But you need to know that the majority of women walking through the doors to give birth in any particular setting are unprepared for what is ahead of them. And that is such a sad thing. So to go along with this, you guys, if you are not already following the show, like literally clicking the follow button on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen, subscribe and follow wherever you are. That is what helps podcasts like this get into the view and eyesight of other moms that should be informed just like you are right now. So please make sure that you do that today. Now, today we're going to be busting some myths. We're going to talk about the mental prep, the physical prep, birth planning, and I want to give you those actionable steps that you can take with you into your birth space so that you are totally prepared. I remember one of my earlier doula clients, and we were getting ready to do some birth prep, and she had watched all these birth videos online, and it didn't do what we would hope that watching birth videos online would do. It left her in a state of, I don't want to say panic, but worry, concern, maybe even a little bit of anxiety about the birth process instead of being really excited about it. And by the end of our session, she was like, I can do this. I feel good. I feel confident. And that's the goal for today. So I want to take these things. Some of them may be good things that are supposed to prepare you in like the very best way for labor and birth that maybe aren't doing that for you just yet. I want to talk about some of these myths, and I want to get you feeling really confident and empowered and prepared for the birth that you have upcoming, because it is the most magical, amazing thing ever. And if you are prepared and you're ready for it, then you're going to feel that way and you'll bring that with you into your labor space. And I hope that means you're going to have a birth that you love. So let's talk about some of these things that maybe you aren't learning. In fact, here's some things, some myths that I see that maybe aren't covered even in your childbirth classes that you guys are taking. So let's talk about some of those. Number one, labor happens on schedule. Now, if you've been listening here for a while, we talk about all kinds of things in regards to that schedule and that it doesn't really exist, right? But for a lot of moms, this is the one that they need to know about. It does not happen in the schedule that you are given necessarily by your provider. So when you get that due date and it's based off of that first missed period, just know that this due date is not a set in stone thing. However, it does not mean that you should be changing that due date later in pregnancy or doing things that change that, move that due date around once it's set. The idea is to understand that that due date is more of a guess date, and there is a natural window that occurs 2 weeks before, 2 weeks prior, that gives you a little bit of flexibility to know that you're not going to give birth necessarily on that 40-week due date. But it is important that you remember that it doesn't mean that when you have those late-term ultrasounds or they're talking fundal height and stuff later, that those due dates get moved and that that's normal. This 40-week guess date, as we call it, should be your starting point. And then if you know things about your body, like when you ovulated and how long your cycles are, then you can actually take that information with you, whether or not your provider receives that, but you have that information so that you know, I actually should be pushed out another week, or I should be a little bit early. And that can give you a good idea of where you're at. The next one is that epidurals make birth pain-free. Now, if you have been in the My Essential Birth course at all, you know that we go over all the details here. And if you're choosing to have an epidural, we talk about the very best time to do that and how to work with your body to get yourself in a really good spot before you do that. You want to work into labor for a little bit. This is one of those things that I see providers do not educate on whatsoever. So if you go into a doctor's office, an OBGYN, and you say, I'm planning for an epidural, it's like, okay, great. We don't really have a discussion about that. Nobody stops you and says, just so you're aware, you will feel contractions prior to having the epidural, and we want you to feel contractions for a little bit and work through labor prior to having the epidural. The other part that they don't talk about is the post-epidural. Receiving an epidural during labor does not necessarily mean that you won't feel anything or that your birth will be pain-free. And there are different reasons for that. Sometimes it has to do with the literal placement of the epidural, like there is discomfort and pain involved with that. But also, perhaps if you are not switching side to side, right side to left side, that pain medication can kind of pool on one side or pool on the other. And then you're feeling sensations on the opposite side of things. Some women it takes and it just is wonderful and they don't feel anything. It's just numb from the waist down and you just don't feel anything and birth progresses and that's great. Some women, when they get it, they feel things the whole time, even though they expect the epidural to work. And so that's something that they're unprepared for. And then the other thing that can happen is you aren't feeling anything, but your body actually needs to allow it to wear off so that you can feel something, so that you can work with your body, so that you're avoiding something like a cesarean birth along the way. Now, there is a whole conversation there that's probably a whole episode on its own. But I think it is really important for moms to know how to work with their body and be knowledgeable and confident about being able to work through the contractions and to understand what the sensations are and to relax their body and to work with your body as you move through those contractions, whether or not you're receiving an epidural, because it will help you progress easier. It'll be more comfortable and less scary, especially for a mom who's like, I don't want to feel anything. Knowing that they're going to feel those sensations, being able to work through them, you're going to surprise yourself. I think every mom will surprise herself with the amount of intensity that she is willing and able and totally capable of handling during labor. And so if you can move into that space and you kind of work with your body and you wait a little bit farther as the contractions go on, we say if you can like push it towards we say, quote, 6 centimeters, right? But even if you're not receiving any kind of vaginal exams, or as we know, dilation doesn't really tell us anything. So in other words, we really mean when we're saying 6 centimeters, we mean either physically 6 centimeters or your body is really actively into labor. So you are focused during contractions. The contractions are long, strong, close together. They're coming closer together 2 to 4 minutes apart. You're kind of pushed into that very active stage of labor. Then when you choose to get the epidural, it should be that your body is able to relax. You can move on during the labor with less intervention and less chance of a cesarean birth. And that's typically the goal for a mom who is looking to have an epidural during labor. Now, I'm not going to go into all the other things that can happen as far as feeling sensations and such with the epidural, but I do think it's fair for moms to know that it is not always epidural and you feel nothing, that there are other things that can happen, other sensations that are involved. And I truly believe that's why it's so important for every mom to prepare and understand and know how to work with her body and receive the help that she needs to get through contractions in the event that an epidural doesn't work or doesn't work the way that she had planned for it to. That way it's not scary and panicky and those feelings of wait, I wasn't planning for this. It's okay. This is a different course that I knew could happen, and now I'm going to adjust. That is what I hope that you take from that. Okay, myth number 3, Instagram and your birth videos that you're watching are not showing the whole story. Now, it actually kind of frustrates me, some of these birth videos, the majority of birth videos that are out there, and they're wonderful and they're beautiful and they're positive, and I'm always talking to you guys about looking and listening to positive birth stories. However, they are such a snapshot of, the 10, 12, 18 hours that went into labor. And we're getting it in about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the birth video. And you're seeing the highlights. And so you are seeing mom work through some of those things, but the majority of it is let's show the candlelight and mom breathing through the labor. And then, it's really quick and then into the pushing and, oh, there's a baby and we're showing postpartum and all this. And it's fluffy and beautiful and all that. I remember when I was looking for birth videos, I was like, I want to see the whole thing. And of course, you weren't going to see all of that. But I remember I had found one woman and it was a 5-part series. I wasn't even done watching it by the time I gave birth because she was still editing her videos after having her baby. And then I gave birth to my baby in the middle of all that. But I loved it because each of her videos was an hour long or something like that. And it was truly like you just watch her kind of like working through the birth process. And I know you guys are going to ask me to find these, and I have not been able to find them again. This was quite a while ago. It was with my third baby, so like 12 years ago that I was watching these things. But I loved it because it showed her. She was, walking up the stairs and moaning and like laying her head on the floor and like, I can do this, rocking back and forth kind of thing, or looking at herself in the mirror and having her funny moments, or breathing with her husband. And it was everything, or a lot of it. And I think that's so much more realistic. I think it would be really helpful if we had more birth videos that really show the work that gets put in to the birth process. So my point of that is saying, just as with motherhood or anything else, when we're looking at things on social media, it is the highlights. Those videos are the highlights, and they are wonderful and beautiful. And that's the goal, is to have some of those wonderful and beautiful experiences. But just know that there is going to be tough, difficult parts of that process to get there. And it's part of it. It's okay. It's normal. And really, it's all about educating yourself so you know how to work with your body to get through it. All right, let's kind of talk about this mind over matter, kind of like a birth brain toolkit, and moving into some myths that are involved with kind of like mindset and what you can actually expect or what you can do. So one of them is, if I think positively, labor will go positively. Now, I am huge on affirmations, on positive affirmations, on birth affirmations, things that are going to get you prepared positively, mentally and physically for your body for this process of birth. However, it is very important to understand that even though we're really working hard to have those positive experiences and that mindset helps, it is truly part of the process. Birth is still intense and it's unpredictable. And it's okay that it is not necessarily what you're dreaming up in your mind. And I think when we talk about, like, even within the birth course, this is something, and I know I've talked about it here as well, this is something that we go over because it matters so much, is we don't create a birth plan. I mean, we love to think about the ideal, and we love to do everything that we can to plan for the good parts of that. And it's really important to understand, and when we talk about it in the course, we call it a birth map. There are many ways to get to that destination of an excellent birth at the end where mom and baby are safe and well and everybody's happy. And there are a lot of twists and turns that your birth can make that we don't get to decide or really have a say in as it goes. And it's okay. It's all, the majority of the time, it's variations of normal. So it's all very normal. It's just that it's not going to follow a perfect pattern. And it's really important to know that up front. So all of these things that we have in our mind. And the other thing too is, and I am one of the people that are telling you to do this, right? We spend a lot of time visualizing our birth. What do we want it to look like? What do we want it to feel like? Who is in our birth space? And we create this. And it's important for us to do that. And we have to be aware of where things can be different so that when they are different or things don't go exactly as we had dreamed them up in our mind, we can say, okay, I'm aware of this. I know exactly what to do. These are my options. And now we're going to navigate this portion of our birth. And that is where somebody like your birth partner or having a doula present, having a really solid birth team is going to come into play, because there are going to be twists and turns in your birth, and it's totally fine. And having those people there and having people to bounce ideas off of and having the knowledge that you have is going to be what gets you through that so positively. And that is the part of mindset that really matters. Another thing with mindset that maybe we're not saying out loud, but I do find that a lot of moms are thinking, is anxiety makes me weak. Now, if you are a mom and you are pregnant and you have anxiety or nervousness, or you're scared about some things that are coming up, that's normal. I think it's really important for you to know that that is very normal. It's natural and it's manageable. It's all part of the process. So it's okay to have that anxiety and also have the courage to walk through whatever the process looks like. So that includes doctor's appointments, that includes going through the birth process, that includes the immediate postpartum and advocating for what you need. All of that is very natural and all of that is very normal. So don't freak out if you're feeling that way. Just know that you have to have some things in place, whether that's the knowledge or people who can speak up and advocate for you or whatever it is, because all of our things that are going to make us nervous or fearful or whatever the case is going to be different for each of us. Just know that putting the solid things in place around us to help buoy us up and strengthen us and support us, that is the important part. It's the anxieties are normal. It's how we handle it that's going to matter. And so as we're talking about some of these things, I mentioned visualizing. Visualizing is very important, and you can take it down to just the very minute things that we're going to do. Like visualize, instead of visualizing the entire birth, visualize yourself having contractions and working through them and breathing through them and focusing on that. Though that visualization you can carry with you throughout your whole labor. In fact, no matter how intense or overwhelming some of those contractions might feel, using that visualization now and pulling that into labor can actually decrease the sensations and help you work through that positively. The other one is birth affirmations. So I talked about positive affirmations. Birth affirmations are so good, and I bring those into labor as well. Birth affirmations are things like, I'm capable, my body knows how to birth my baby, I can do anything for a minute. Those are affirmations that you can bring into that space with you. It is absolutely 100% part of the support that you have within your mind, within your body, to be able to work through those contractions. The other thing that's really important, and I talked about support and stuff, is having your birth partner so much on the same page with you. If you guys can be on the same page and he knows how to support you, then you will have what you need. And their energy and them being that rock in your birth space is so important and so necessary. We get into this with our husbands, right? With our birth partners. We get into this space because we did something together that got us there, and they can help walk us through that. We need these men so much. And for birth partners, if you're here and you're listening, you are needed so much more than you realize, even just your presence and your attention. So make sure that you're being there fully and engaged in that work and in that space. And it's so useful for moms. All right, let's talk about some exercises and tips that can actually make labor smoother. A myth that I often hear is that exercise is too risky. This is something that is still going around. We're told, once you're pregnant, don't lift anything, take it easy, relax a lot, all of that. Let's bust that right now. It's super safe to be exercising during pregnancy. And yes, even if you didn't exercise before pregnancy. Now, I'm not saying you immediately start picking up weights and doing a bunch of lunges and squats and bench pressing, whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But you can immediately start taking walks every day. You can immediately start making sure that you are getting the amount of water that you need. You can immediately make sure that you are getting the amount of protein that you should have. We're looking at like 120 grams a day. Aim for that plus. Those are all things that you can safely do immediately anytime during pregnancy. So if you are hearing this and you are 30 weeks, perfect. If you're hearing this and you're not pregnant yet, perfect. There is no time better than right now to get started on some things that are going to be better for you and your baby. Obviously, I have a perfect guide for you guys. So if you haven't downloaded the 3 exercise guide yet, you can go and do that now, myessentialbirth.com, and it's on that front page, but I'll also put it in the show notes so that you guys can get that. Those exercises, it's nothing like you're thinking. It's not about building a really cute booty or anything like that. These are all functional exercises that help your body to move correctly. It helps your baby be in a more comfortable and easy position for birth, but it also strengthens and lengthens what you need it to. And they're easy and you can be done in about 10 to 15 minutes a day. It's something that you do every single day and it will benefit you. It's so simple, so go do it. The other thing to consider is sleep. So I talked about hydration and nutrition, but making sure that you're getting adequate rest as much as you can. Those are all going to be those energy boosters for labor. Now, let's go into another myth. And this one I love. And it is that baby's position cannot be influenced. So maybe you're just told your baby's just going to be in whatever position they're going to be in for birth, and we hope for the best. And that's totally not true. In fact, those 3 exercises that we have you do, one of them has to do specifically with baby's positioning. And one of those things is belly mapping. So belly mapping can actually be one of the ways that you can tell what position that your baby is in, and then you can do things that help encourage that baby into a good or better position. So there are things that you can do together with your birth partner, things like rebozo sifting and stuff, or pelvic tilts, or that forward leaning inversion, some of those 3 exercises that we do. There are absolutely things that you can do to encourage that baby into a better position. So I had a mom, I remember one of my moms, we had done some belly mapping, we figured out and even even just by like palpating, meaning like you're just touching the belly and kind of like, where is baby at? She was concerned that baby was in kind of an awkward position. And, mother's intuition was totally right. And so we could tell, yep, baby's a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, whatever they were. And we just had her do some rebozo sifting, some pelvic tilts. We absolutely had her doing the forward leaning inversion, but specific to one side that baby was kind of like headed on. And then her husband, we did some massage and I helped massage the belly a little bit in the right direction. Man, those babies are responsive. They want to be in a good position and sometimes they just need a little bit of course correction. So understanding what position your baby is in and helping to influence them into a really good position for birth is such a benefit to mom and baby because it helps progress birth naturally at a normal rate. It allows the baby to move down the pelvis comfortably instead of getting stuck on some of these areas. Everything about it allows for an easier, smoother, more comfortable birth. So yes, you can absolutely influence baby's position before labor begins, and earlier in pregnancy, it's so much better because as time goes on, if you're one of these moms, and I was one of these moms that has a breech baby at like 35 weeks, there's a lot that needs to happen at that time to get that baby into a good position. And can baby move? Absolutely, they can. My baby moved, I think we found out at like 34, 35 weeks, and within 2 weeks had that baby head down. And they were ready to go and they didn't move back, but just needed a little bit of guidance. But if we are not paying attention to that and we're not doing our part, then, that could have been a little bit trickier. I remember when my midwife told me, she's like, because I was like, oh, I don't care that baby's breech. Like, yeah, that's fine. I know you can birth them that way. And she goes, it's going to be a little bit easier for you if that baby can be head down. Literally, that's all she had to say. And I was like, okay, I will be doing all the things. And so I scheduled with the chiropractor and I did the exercises. I did these frog walks up the stairs and whatever else she asked me to do. And then I found some like spinning babies things that I was doing. And let me tell you, it worked. And I'm just going to trust her that it was easier. So if you can get that baby into a good position, then do it. And remember, it's like when I'm talking about these 3 exercises and stuff, I want you guys to understand that these little tweaks can make a big difference. So it doesn't have to be some big fancy exercise routine or anything like that. These daily practices that we have, walking and squatting and the forward leaning inversion and just these little things that we do, like they have great big rewards. So be gentle with yourself, trust the process, and allow yourself to do these little things that are going to have such a great benefit for you. All right, let's talk about that birth plan a little bit and remaining flexible because this is another one, right? If this is something we take on to ourselves as moms. If my birth doesn't go as I planned, like it didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do, then I failed somehow. And I see that a lot with moms, especially who are planning for an unmedicated birth. I saw this a lot as a birth educator, and this was kind of just the way that things went. They were planning for an unmedicated birth because at the time, that's the only thing I taught. That's the only thing I knew to teach. And then when they ended up with an epidural or things didn't go the way that they had planned or a cesarean birth, they felt like they had failed. And I can relate to that with my first baby, like that same thing. I was like, what is wrong with my body? How come I couldn't birth my baby in this way? I even felt that way a little bit with my second baby, where I was like, I didn't want the epidural. I really had a desire to not use any medication or anything like that. And I ended up with an epidural with my second. And it was a beautiful birth and it was very healing and all these wonderful things too. But you can't help but like those little thoughts creep in. So I want to tell you right now that if things change, it does not mean that you have failed. I think it's really important to create a birth plan that has some flexibility. And even within the course, we kind of, I think I've talked about it before, we do this game and it kind of helps you to walk through some of the different things that can happen during birth and how you would deal with it as you go through it. And sometimes it's hard to put yourself in that position and accept some of the things that are happening. Like, actually, I didn't want to be induced, or I didn't want to have the IV, or I didn't want the internal fetal monitoring and they can't find my baby. There are things that come up during labor that change how we feel about the process. Now, the biggest part of this, though, is being part of the process. Because you are aware of the different things that can happen during labor, have the knowledge that should some of these changes occur, you know what you would prefer. Or if you're not sure, if you're not certain about what you'd prefer, you know that you have a voice in that space because you've set up your birth care and your providers and everybody to support you in that way. When we are a part of the decision-making process, we feel so much more grounded and in control of that situation. And that's huge when you are in such a vulnerable, open space. You want to feel like you have some amount of control of your body and your baby, even if the situation becomes a little bit off the course that you had suspected. And so when we have that knowledge and education, we bring that in with us and we have that support. That is where we feel confident, even when things are a little unsure. Okay, so let's give you guys 3 things that you can do this week to feel more ready and prepared for this birth coming up. Because here's a myth I want to bust too, that you have to do everything perfectly to be ready. And we all know that that is very not true. So if that is something that your mind is feeding you, tell it to go away. So here are 3 easy things that you can do right now. Number 1, let's work on that mental prep. Okay. 5-minute daily visualization. Now, of course, as I said, the visualization doesn't mean that it's going to go that way. And it's also really important to get our minds wrapped around the good things that we are preparing for our birth. And so however you want to use that visualization, if that's you, as I said, working through contractions in the beginning or later in labor, how you're going to handle them, what your breath work is like, what the room looks like, smells like, feels like, that kind of visualization can be great. If you want to use this visualization as a meditation time, then do that. And that's where it's like eyes closed or open with dim lights. And you just picture from the top of your head going all the way down. And you're like, okay, I can feel my eyebrows relaxing, my forehead. And you go all the way down and my jaw is open, right? Because when the jaw is open, the vagina is open. So that's open. And then you move down and you're like, my neck is relaxed and my shoulders, I can feel them just softening and moving lower. And you go all the way through arms, elbows, hands, all the way down your midsection into your toes. Whatever the visualization is that you're going to be using, just make it a positive one, make it calm, make it relaxing, and keep working forward with that. The other thing I want you to do is that physical prep. So if that's the 3 free exercises, I highly recommend that you do it. It's easy. You'll be done 10 to 15 minutes a day, and it'll be good for your body and your baby to prepare you for birth. But whatever you do for your physical prep, even if it's 10 to 15 minutes of walking twice a day, that can be something that you do for physical. You can include water in that. Maybe you're focusing on getting your protein, but focus on something physical for your body. The last one is partner prep. Now, this is something that we do not spend enough time on. I stress it a ton. I think it's really important. In fact, when I was preparing for my pregnancies and my labors, having my husband by my side and as part of this with me was really, really important to me. So if that's you too, then you definitely want to take time to prepare your birth partner. Now that can look like bringing him along for some of the visualization or meditation exercises that I was talking about. It can include bringing him along for those physical things, even asking him, hey, I'm trying to hit 120 grams of protein every day for this week. Will you help me prepare meals? Or can you take care of dinner these 2 days? Or will you help me meal prep? Can you help remind me, check in with me throughout the day, however you want to include them? The other thing can be, these are the things that I really want to see happen during labor. Can we practice some of those? Maybe that is some hands-on support. Maybe it's just the communication and making sure like, hey, I know that, people are going to be calling and wanting to talk to you while I'm in labor, or you're really into sports and you want to be checking the game, or like, this is what I need from you. I need your phone off. I want your attention. I need you to just be here and present with me. Like no work stuff, no social stuff, just be here with me. Having those conversations prior to labor, prior to when things get serious is really, really important. So remember that you don't need to know everything, that those small, intentional steps are going to get you confident and ready. And I totally believe in you as you are practicing and moving through these things. So I hope you loved this episode. I hope that we busted some of those myths that are super common for every mom to be hearing right now, and that you feel really confident and empowered to move into your own labor space.